developing the nodes compared to the Three Bears OG and especially the Double Grape. And she's also got a nice little main stem forming as well. At the very top, we can see that nitrogen clone forming, which is of course not desired at all. At this point, there's really nothing I could do to fix it besides digging out the topsoil, but I don't want to dig out and disrupt the roots. And I figure at this point, just let the plant grow and see what happens, which is what we're going to do. And yeah, viewing it from the top, the new fan leaves look great. But anyways, moving on to the next purple mindset. Dude, we could see a little bit of the same issue with that nitrogen toxicity, but also it's pretty cool just to see like the similarities in the plant. A lot of the times people post things like, oh, same genetics but wildly different plants. And that's just because their genetic traits don't have dominant expressions. Versus the purple mindset has very strong dominant traits, which is why we see that almost perfect consistency across every single plant, even in the first generation. But yeah, that's a lot of things that new growers get wrong, or like new breeders or people new to breeding. They think that the older the generation, the more stable, and yes, that can be sometimes, but not all the time. If your traits aren't dominant and you don't have dominant traits, then you're going to see variability. But if you have dominant traits, then they're going to take over every time and be expressed every time. Just a little breeding fact in the middle of this episode. But anyway.
Okay, breeding facts. So, he could have referenced a Mendel chart. He could have talked about what we call polygenetic inheritance. I think it's called. Somebody check me on that. But when you have non-Mendelian inheritance, that's where you're looking at multiple genes that control a trait, and that's most genes. There's very few genes that are, or few traits that are monogenic. Okay. The next thing he brings up is that even in the F1, he's seeing dominant traits. Now that is going to be, if it's a true F1, that's going to be the norm, is to see those dominant traits expressed in the F1. That's why people sell F1s. Okay? It's when you go to F2, that's your first step in your inbred line. That's where you see the recessive traits come out. And that's where selection is critical. So yeah, if you're going through F1s, you should be seeing good height, good vigor, good bud development. You should be seeing great traits out of your F1. If you have 25% of your F1s coming out with some sort of negative trait, that means you crossed a plant that had some sort of recessive being passed in its alleles. Look at your Mendel chart. Look at your Punnett squares. Begin to understand this. And you have certain ratios of inheritance for desired traits. But you got to be careful of stuff like this, man. This guy, he's clearly got no clue what he's talking about. I mean, he's a nice young man. I'm not going to dox nobody here and call out who this is. But, yeah, your F1s are going to show your dominance. Your F2 is going to show you everything that's wrong with that line. And it's critical to do selection here. And by the time you get to F3, when you go through that progeny, you can see how your F2 selections are. Do you want to back cross to your F1 and keep it strong? I think that's a good general place for people to start. Not to think, oh, because this plant has dominant, it's always going to breed dominant traits, and those dominant traits are always going to be there. Your F2 is always your first step in your inbred line. So just remember that. God bless y'all. Ron Diesel.